I'm grateful for those experiences, for experiencing that, like, what, when it comes to being the butt end of the joke, because I cherish what it feels like to be so valued, which is what it feels like to be in a relationship with you.
The only wrong answer is to sit back and stay the same. Or maybe you're on the other end of the law of familiarity and maybe you're taking your partner for granted or your life for granted or your health for granted. We all are guilty of that, myself included, 100%.
Conscious couples, business partners, and singles committed to attracting their dream partner. Welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and combined relationship expertise to help you create and consistently cultivate the most magnificent, intimate relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching conscious couples and individuals all over the world, as well as starting and growing a global business together, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals all over the world, welcome back to the Conscious Couples podcast. This is going to be episode number 19. Oh, I'm sorry. This is episode number 18. That's my bad. I'm already off to a great start here. How gratitude can make or break your relationship. And before we jump into this episode, I just want to thank NLPS, Next Level Podcast Solutions, for producing this show. YouTube, audio, show notes, all of the above. Thank you so much, Kevin, Ron, Aaron, the entire NLPS team. Also, this is about gratitude. And I just want to share quickly before we jump into this episode that Emilia and I made a commitment to one another when we first met to do gratitudes, something we call the gratitude game. And I calculated the numbers before this. I have all of the gratitudes saved because we used to audio them to each other. And I calculated it was over 690 days straight of gratitude expression to one another, which is 1.9 years, I think is what it calculated out to when I did the math. So for basically 2 full years of our relationship, Emilia and I said before we went to bed that which we are most grateful for. And I will say, full disclosure, that there were several audio messages where Emilia may or may not, cannot confirm nor deny, may or may not have fallen asleep in the middle of her gratitudes. And so I remember listening to your audio and I had to find when you started again. Luckily they have the waves files. Yeah, the wave links, so I can just kind of skip to the
You don't
part.
want to hear me snore?
No. But as always, and I guess this isn't technically ladies first since I just talked a whole bunch.
Oh, good love.
But kicking it over to you.
My baby. Thank you for that. Outing me. It's all good. Yeah, you poor thing. You have gotten a lot of poor thing. You've gotten a lot of gratitudes while also simultaneously me sleeping. No, anyhow. All right. So for
I'll
those
listen
of
to
you
you sleep all day.
Yeah. All right. So gratitude, how gratitude can make or break your relationship. This episode, we want to try to keep it bite-sized, but bear with me as I dive in here. One of the first things that I wanted to get into was a quick story with respects to my experience of the opposite of gratitude. And I want each listener to imagine what the opposite of gratitude looks like to you. What does it feel like? What does it look like? How do you know when you're not in gratitude? Is gratitude for you a state of being? Is it an expression? Or is it a verb like Alan and I believe it is? Gratitude to us is an action. It's a state of being, but it's demonstrated in the day-to-day on how you choose to live, how you choose to represent yourself, how you choose to show up in your relationship. So think about that and think about what gratitude is not. What does that experience look like for you? For me, the experience looked like me being on the butt end of the joke that my former partner and other family members were laughing at when I walked into a room. So rewind several years. Obviously, this is not in the relationship that I have with Alan, but I remember walking into a room within a household. I believe it was our family household. And there was a joke being had between a couple of my family members and my partner. And turns out the joke was actually about me. And I was the butt end of the joke. And at first, I thought it was interesting to be on the butt end of someone's joke, especially my intimate partner, who at the time I thought, loved and cared about me. Awesome. But sometimes you just don't understand, like, if you love and care and respect and admire someone and have deep gratitude for them, like, why would they be making a joke about you? And so in the moment it was laughing and haha, this is funny. But looking back, it's so obvious. And like I was sharing with you a little bit earlier, babe, is that was actually not gratitude at all. That partner actually just was way too comfortable, to the extent where it was funny for me to be their joke. They could talk about a billion things in the world, their experiences, but yet the joke was about me. And I won't go into the extent of what that was or why that really mattered. But the truth underneath it is what that was a great representation of was what I believe the opposite of gratitude to be, which is entitlement. Entitlement to, the relationship, entitlement to our, at the time, love, the entitlement to the comfort and the no consequences going to happen as a result of making fun of your partner. I never thought that would have happened, right? So as we look back at gratitude, it's not all glum and gloom, because thankfully now I'm in an incredibly aligned relationship, someone who obviously in every single thing that they do, say, think, or believe on his own accord is in a state of gratitude. But that wasn't always the case for me. So I know very clearly what entitlement looked like. Entitlement to my time, entitlement to the relationship, entitlement to my heart, to my feelings, to my emotions. And as it comes to each one of our relationships, I think gratitude, this state of being, this verb, it's in everything that we say, think, and do. And so luckily I have a glory story on the other end of that, which, baby, you actually alluded to on the, what was it? How many days of gratitude?
I think 690 something. I asked Siri because I have the 2 dates in the voice memos app. I went to the bottom of the voice memos app, the first one we've ever done, November 1st, I think 2019, something like that.
We were so new.
We were so new, yeah. And then I went to the latest one, which I think was like September 27th. I do remember numbers well.
You are so incredible with that.
Well, thank you, sweetie. Okay. And it was September 27th, 2021. And I just asked Siri the difference between those numbers, how many days. I think it was 690 something. I honestly don't know, but I do know that it was 1.9 years.
Yeah. So thankfully, my glory story now is my current reality. It's those days, 1.9 years, or 1.9 years, almost 2, of gratitude in action, a proactive practice of gratitude in the day-to-day, where you and I exchange what we're grateful for. And it's so different than what I've formerly experienced. And, how often do you hear couples brag about or even talk about how they have an actual practice that they follow, that they subscribe to on their own accord to try to help their relationship thrive and flourish? I don't know one, but I do know that what I am ridiculously humbled and grateful to is your commitment to that. Because for those of you who are listening, having a gratitude practice in your day-to-day is absolutely incredible. It is. It might be hard to get started with because you might not necessarily look for that in your day-to-day, right? Every single day might be really challenging. You might be overwhelmed. You might be an empty cup by the end of the day. So coming to what you're grateful for might be a challenge. And honestly, that's a travesty because we have such beautiful lives. Where your energy goes, or where your focus goes, energy will flow. And I'm grateful to you, love, because you have helped hone that in to be a simple practice, a structured 3 gratitudes a night before we go to bed, so that it could be sustainable and proactive in our day-to-day. Whereas if it were for my feminine nature, would have been like 24 per night. And that's why we took a little bit of break. But anyhow, I'm grateful for that, because the gratitude game isn't just something that you're winning or losing at. It's more so something that is a part of who you are. And that's demonstrated in how we show up every single day.
Sweetie, when it comes to relationships, some of our listeners, what are some indicators that their partner is grateful for them and not entitled? I think more importantly, let's do this. So there's two things that I wrote down in particular. I think the most important lesson here is what you've already stated, which is the opposite of gratitude is entitlement. If you are entitled to your partner's time, and you're entitled to them being with you forever, and you're entitled to what they do or don't do, or when they're available or not available, that is the opposite of being grateful for who they are uniquely as their own individual. And I think that maybe in some capacity it's because I grew up in really hard circumstances, but I feel like entitlement is not something that I struggle with a ton, and I think I'm good at eliminating entitlement. And that's the second piece here, which is gratitude is a verb, and if you're not proactive about, this is what I do personally. I take you out of the equation, and I remember what it was like to be in relationships that weren't this magnificent. I remember what it was like to be alone. I remember what it was like to be in misaligned relationships. I remember what it was like to feel misunderstood or to feel not valued. I remember what it was like to have a partner that didn't have big goals and dreams. I remember, but I'm always thinking back to like how hard things were growing up. I always am thinking back to how bad things can be. And I'll share this briefly as well, because this is an episode about gratitude. I came into this world having lost my father when I was 2 years old, and that will strip the entitlement right from you. Because you learn from a very young age that anything can be taken at any time, and that just stays with you. And then I lost my stepfather at 14, and those are two of the big losses, but there are countless others. And so when you live from this place of reverence of like, we live in a free country, we get to do this podcast together. I have a beautiful, unbelievable woman right in front of me who loves me so much and who I love so much. And you know that isn't to be taken for granted. You can't take those special, every value in life must be defended and it must be valued. And I think that the real through line here to wrap up is, not to wrap up the episode, but to wrap up my little monologue here. If you're grateful for your health, prove it by taking care of your health. If you're grateful for your fitness, prove it by going to the gym. If you're grateful for your relationship, prove it by expressing gratitude, by being there for her or for him. I think that gratitude, there's two main things. One, you have to take, if you don't know the true value of something until it's gone.
Right.
And so you have to go up in your mind and say, okay, I remember what it was like before my partner. And there's that age-old thing of treat her or him the way you did in the beginning, and there won't be an end. Because you have so much reverence in the beginning, and then the law of familiarity over the years starts to creep in if you let it, but it doesn't have to.
Truth.
And so my question for you, love, is what did it feel like to be undervalued? And what should our listeners be looking out for if they are being taken for granted, and or if they are taking their partner for granted, quite frankly, too, because we've all been, I think, guilty of the law of familiarity at times.
Hi, my name is Jason Blackstock, and this is my wife, Lisa. We got connected with Alan and Emilia a few months ago through friends, and we were trying to look for ways to strengthen our relationship.
And right away, we just noticed with Alan and Emilia how they made us feel so calm, and like everything that they did with us was gentle, and it felt so like we could let our guard down right away. And that was something that allowed us to open up and just get closer so quickly. So
Yeah, I felt it was very easy to connect with them. And their intuition for our situation was very surprising to me. Um, both past and present, they just knew us.
Yeah, they picked up on things that we didn't even think they would. They just, even in our mannerisms and the way we would look at each other at certain points in the conversation, it was just really cool to feel like they understood us. And it really gave us all the tools that we needed to work on us when we weren't talking directly to them. So we had like homework to do and things to work on, and it really elevated our relationship in big ways. And I think we're both really excited to keep working with Alan and Emilia, because you're never done working on your relationship. And I just feel like that is, if we're good, then the rest of our world is good with our children and our 4 kids. So
Yeah, we're very grateful that we met Alan and Amelia and are looking forward to the future.
Oof. That's a challenging question, but I'm grateful for it because of the fact that it's raw and it's real. One of the things that you mentioned before I answer that was to keep me in gratitude. It's a proactive thing. You have to take you out of it, or take whoever you value out of the equation. And you have a really good memory about being able to do that. One thing that I've struggled with is memory, and I know a lot of other people do as well. I think that pain helps us to remember what it feels like, to not be valued to the extent that you should be, or that you want to be. I think another great practice to do is think about the future that you want to have with your partner, and take your partner out of that. Take your partner out of the future that you want to have, or you believe you will be having with them. That puts things into stark reality of the fact that nothing is guaranteed. Absolutely nothing. And so just like it is to take yourself out of the equation, or take your partner out of the equation, and you can remember of what that was like now. Project into your future of what you believe you're going to have, quote unquote, as if there's ownership, have with your partner, and take them out of that. And I think that while I say that, that's been one of what my go-to is. I project into the future of what I believe we're going to have together, and then I take you out of it. And that is scary. That is scary because it puts into sharp reality the love and the care that I have for you and our relationship. And to answer the question of like, what does it feel like to be undervalued or not valued, so that our listeners can kind of experience that, or try to prime their brains for what that looks like or what that feels like. I mean, it feels like loneliness, I would say. And I say that because you feel unheard in a way. You feel unsupported, almost as if you were to fall, there wouldn't be anyone to catch you. You almost feel like the finger is always pointed at you for everything. You feel as though the challenges that are happening are created because you created them, not because your partner had anything to do with them.
Yeah.
And those are just some of the little things. But, I think that we could go into a whole list of, what does it feel like to be undervalued? And I think that where you see the light in your relationship, your partner does not also share in seeing that with you. And, that might sound cliche, but it's true. Like, it's when your partner thinks that you two have it made just because you're in, quote unquote, a relationship and you've chosen that, right? They asked you out or they asked you to marry them. It's like, yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that you've said yes to every single day for the rest of your lives. While that might be the perception, I think that a lot of people just kind of slap that on for life and then feel like they can kind of take a back seat and put their feet up and not realize that every single day is a choice to meet that and meet your partner there, so that the undervalued feeling doesn't creep in. So I digress, but one of the things that I wanted to bring into this episode of how gratitude can actually make your relationship rather than break it, right? We all know what it feels like to be undervalued. Hopefully, if you're out there and you don't feel that, I don't wish that upon anyone, but I do have reverence for that because it makes you so grateful for someone who can value you and knows how to value you. And that's something that I will take for forever. I'm grateful for those experiences, for experiencing that, like, what? When it comes to being the butt end of the joke, because I cherish what it feels like to be so valued, which is what it feels like to be in a relationship with you. But gratitude itself, living, breathing, acting in gratitude, it can combat stress. Like, this is just on the biological level. Combat stress when we are seeking things that are good or things to be grateful for. Our brain actually starts to de-escalate a lot of the triggers, the challenges that we're having in life. And so when that stress gets reduced, when you're not necessarily always in an ungrateful state, it actually contributes to better health, more longevity, right? And a sense of a decreased loneliness. So you don't have as much loneliness when you can live in a state of gratitude. And this isn't just for conscious couples, but for conscious singles too. If you can write gratitudes every single day, or just take a moment and have your hand on your heart and be grateful for who you are, for where you've come from your circumstances, no matter how challenging they might be, that gratitude can make you feel less lonely. And studies and research and data shows time and time again that increases overall well-being. So take it where it is. And I think aside from the questions that I have from our listeners, that's what I have to say. Babe, what's your perspective on that?
There's no there's no replacement for expressing gratitude, but there's also no replacement for showing it through action.
True.
And I think both are important. Because you can be grateful inside of yourself for your partner, but if you don't express it to him or her, they don't know that. And it takes effort, and I think that's a good thing. So, for example, before bed, I'm always trying to make sure that we do our gratitudes, and you've done awesome at that too, genuinely. But and then you have to think back on your day, and you have to think of things that you're grateful for, and sometimes we're so tired after a long day or a long week that we just want to go nunites.
But you always make sure we do this.
I think it's really important. I missed it ever since we stopped, genuinely, and there was always something missing of I feel like I'm not as grateful as I want to be. And I definitely feel I feel like you got to show it in your actions. I feel like you got to show it and express it show it in your actions, express it in your words, check in with it. How grateful am I? And then I think the very last piece I'll say here is that love, success, having a magnificent relationship, having a magnificent home, having magnificent business and a magnificent team, I just don't want to lose sight of
clients even.
Clients. It's a constant proactive practice of, this is a simple thing, but Emilia and I were on a walk. Or no, I'm sorry, we were at the gym together, and I came up to her in the middle of our workout, and I said, we just finished our workout, our alarms went off, and I said, sweetheart, I really want to go right now because I think I'm scared because we left Tucker at home with the rice cooker on. And I was so scared that my overwhelm and not thinking was going to potentially start a fire, and then Tucker would be in the house, and we got home and we were so grateful for him because of the thought of, oh my God, what if
we come home and he's...
And I want to live in that remembrance of these things, your pet, your partner, your business, your life, your health, they have to be earned every day through proactive effort. And I think that's the real through line here is, are you earning your keep? Are you earning love? Are you earning, love? It's like that saying about success. It's, you never own success. You never own your partner. You never own love. The rent is due every day. The rent is due every single day. And I learned that from a very young age through massive pain and through things being, quite frankly, taken that I didn't expect to be taken. And I think that you never lose that. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And so if you feel like you're taken for granted, you know it. You know it when you're hearing this episode. You know you feel that way. You got to express that. Do something about it. The only wrong answer is to sit back and stay the same. Or maybe you're on the other end of the law of familiarity, and maybe you're taking your partner for granted, or your life for granted, or your health for granted. We all are guilty of that, myself included, 100%. I do work really hard on this, and I'll give myself credit for that, but I screw up on this too. Even just listening to or reading some of the old gratitudes that you and I used to do and how thorough and thoughtful they were, it's like, oh, interesting. We aren't as thorough as we once were, and I want to be even more grateful. And so whether it's the love jar that we share, that's for another episode, or it's the gratitudes before bed, or it's just expressing gratitude through my thoughts and actions, I think we can all do better at this. I think we all should. And I think that what you appreciate will appreciate. What you appreciate will grow. What you appreciate will expand. What you fail to appreciate will decay.
Yeah.
And that is just the way it's set up. So this was really powerful. Thank you, sweetheart. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
The only last thing is I find, we do relationships coaching, and one of the through lines that I actually find, just you sparked this in me that I want to share with our listeners, because if we can help them to proactively be grateful or just have awareness to how important this might be for a lot of people, it may be their partner, I want to share that. There's a lot of people that have words of affirmation as a high second or high third love language for them. So a lot of people value words of affirmation, meaning recognition. And it's something that can be so small and so easily seen. But yet, if we choose to not pay attention, to not listen, and to put everything else in front of it, you're missing those small little opportunities that can be huge windows to build a magnificent relationship. And words of affirmation just jumps off the page as something that I see so common in relationships being an issue. And it really doesn't need to be. It's just like, how asleep are you at the wheel? And I wish upon all of our listeners to just be a little bit more attentive to that. Even myself, I can always improve in this regard, but, little compliments can go such a long way for your partner,
I will say this, sweetheart, you always, you're more proactive at saying thank you for little things than anyone I've ever met. Like the littlest things, like I'll pick up subs or whatever. You always make sure. Did I say thank you for that yet? Of course. It's so sweet. I really appreciate it. It is nice to be appreciated, and hell yeah. All right. So do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I have 3 questions for our listeners, and then I will invite you to the very next event that we have, which I'm really excited for. So questions for you to ask in case you're not already contemplating your entire existence.
Just in case.
Number 1, where can you be more grateful in your relationships? Number 2, what do you feel taken for granted for?
That sexy body go bump, bump, bump. I'm just joking. I don't know why I said that.
Number 3, how can you help your relationship practice gratitude? Leading by example is a beautiful gift when it comes to relationships, because those beautiful mirror neurons go off when you do something. Not that you need to expect it, but science will show that your relationship will probably reciprocate to some degree. So I am called to sing right now because Alan just had an outburst of singing. And so
I think it was the long pause that made me uncomfortable. So I had to sing to fill it.
Thank you for that, love.
You're welcome, love.
So please join us. If this is something that you feel as though, you want to do more at, this is going to be incorporated into this concept, this state of being, this way of life, really, the subscription to the gratitude life, is going to be incorporated at our next live virtual relationship talks event, which will be all about how to have stress-free travel with your partner. Now, that might seem like a pipe dream, but trust me, Alan and I tried to do an episode just on this, and I forget which number it was, but if you go and listen to it, Alan and I in real time, we were like dumbfounded at how challenging it is to have stress-free travel with your partner. But we realized that we have cracked the code, and we want to be able to share that with you. Some of the secrets, some of the tools, some of the tricks that we've learned how to have as much or as little stress as possible while traveling. And knowing that people are traveling arguably now more than ever post quote unquote COVID, this is something that honestly, if you can do a little, even 1% better in terms of traveling with your partner and reducing that stress level, man, oh man, can you have a better time together. So join us at the free live virtual event. The link will be in the show notes. It is July 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we hope to see you there. We have some of our listeners, some of the community members joining us, and it's always so fun to see a new face. So we can't wait to see you.
Join us for those. We just surpassed our 12th event in a row, so we did a full year, and that will be our 13th event, so we're coming up on our second year there. Also, if you want to do a relationship talks call with us, you and your partner, if you're struggling with anything, struggling with communication, struggling with vulnerability, struggling with love languages, struggling with check-ins, anything you've learned on this podcast where you're like, I don't get it, I want more information, reach out. We do half-hour calls every single Saturday. The link is in the show notes if you want to book on our calendar. And it'll be Emilia, myself, and we do not bite. These are completely private, and we're just excited to meet our listeners. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Sorry again for my massive singing outburst, but honestly, it was pretty cool.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome, which is a Moana reference, I'm pretty sure. Thank you so much. As always, it's not about me or you. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please make sure you follow us on Instagram. I am at Evolve with Emilia, and Alan is a Lazaros 88.
Also, if you or your partner resonated with this episode, leave us a review at the link in the show notes, and please share this with someone you love and care about.
Until next time, remember, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.